Sonic, Affrittando, Allegro, Altissimo, Cadenza, Espressivo, Falsetto, Gemacht, Jazz, Lamentando, Crescendo. Okay, so I thought I could do some like black magic and transfer all of my knowledge to you, but it turns out that's not a thing. So I have to do this old school, right? And I have to say words and I have to like teach and stuff. So this video on how to do music is all about EQ, right? What it is, when to use it, how to use it, and then at the end of it, I'm going to cram your brain with all of the best tips that I've learned in my 16 years of producing music. I'm just going to put some text up on the screen, so like when you watch back for your second or third time, you can skip to the most relevant points, but I absolutely do recommend you watch this video at least 1,800 times. I'll sip my tea while you look. Okay, let's get to it. Now you probably already know what an equalizer is. Pretty much any stereo contains a set of controls to boost or reduce the bass and the treble. That's EQ, that's it. It just so happens that in music, we use equalizers that are way more precise and way more customizable. So we have huge control over the frequencies of all of our individual recordings. So what the fuck is frequencies? Well, frequencies are what give a sound its pitch, if it has one, and they're also a large part of what we call timbre, which is like the character of a sound or an instrument. In 1822, this crazy smart dude who goes by the name of JBJ Fourier,
Fourier.
Whatever. Anyway, Fourier wrote a book called Théorie analytique de la chaleur. And in that book, he laid down the foundations for something we call the Fourier series and latterly the Fourier transform. In that branch of mathematics, we take it as a given that all sounds are made up of continuous periodic waves. Don't listen to that guy, he's too wordy. All you gotta know is sounds are made up of, like, wavy things. Sine waves. Let me just unmute this quickly. Cool. And what we're looking at here, this yellow thing, that's our sine wave. Sine wavy thing, right? And it's at a frequency of 440 hertz. Now what that means is that this sine wavy thing comes out your speaker 440 times a second, right? And that frequency gives us a pitch. In this case, this pitch is an A. Now, if we take a look at the spectrum analyzer, we can see there's not much going on, right? Except for around 440 hertz. That's just the volume of our frequency. Now, if we take a look at this second sine wave, it looks pretty much the same. It's really similar. And if I put both of them together and play them together, something weird happens with the sound. They both take up the same space in the frequency spectrum, except one of them is like 5 cents different. If I take a look at them on the oscilloscope, yep, they're both pretty much the same. But if I remove these from the display and take a look at the mixture of these two, look at that shit. Let's take a look on the spectrum analyzer. The volume's going up and down. So what the fuck's happening there? Like, is it magic? Is it ghosts? Is it disco fever? Well, actually, it turns out it's all of those things, but also is none of them. And this kind of thing is exactly what happens when we set up a microphone in a room and we record our voice or an instrument. When this happens in the real world, we call it comb filtering. And it's just like one of the many, many reasons why we need to use equalizers to get our music sounding as good as possible. let's mute this because this is really fucking annoying. You see, frequencies just bounce around the room and they get reflected off the walls, the ceiling, me, everything. I don't know, pies. When they reflect back, they're delayed by a tiny, tiny amount. And then what happens is you get frequencies all over the spectrum. They get boosted and reduced. And then pretty soon our simple one microphone setup just becomes a bomb site, right? So what do you do then? So there's three main goals that we want to keep in mind when we use EQ on our recordings. And I like to use this little mnemonic when teaching people to help them remember. And I don't know why I'm doing that. 3 goals: back, sack, and crack. Let me explain. Back. We want to cut back all those nasty frequencies. The frequencies that are ruining the recording, like weird hums, resonant peaks, anything that sounds like arse, just cut it back. Sack. Don't have your frequencies hanging out, dangling all over the place. Just put them in a nice little sack and shape that sack to really show off the best parts of the recording. And finally, who can say no to a little crack? Crack open some space in your mix so that all the other recordings get a little breathing room. For example, like, let's say you've recorded the guitar and it's using up a lot of frequencies. You've got some vocals and they need to use some frequencies too. And they're like clashing all over in the frequency space, when really we want to put some effort in and make them, but in music. Now I know what you're going to say to me next, but I don't know how to give my hairy recordings the back, sack and crack treatment. That's why Daddy's here. Alright? So first let's take a look at what tools are available. I'm going to do a quick rundown of the 2 most common types of EQ and all of their parts. Okay, so first up is graphical EQs. These guys are pretty simple. We just have like a whole bunch of sliders and all they do is increase and decrease the volume of frequencies at fixed points. That's it. And here we have parametric EQs. These are a lot more flexible. You can sweep around the frequency ranges. You can control the level of boost and gain. And you can also modify the bandwidth. You just make it thinner or fatter, basically. And this bandwidth, sometimes people call it resonance, sometimes people call it Q, whatever. It goes by many names.
I go by many names.
Each group of controls in a parametric EQ is called a filter. I'm going to do a quick visual rundown of all the filter types that there are out there. Or the most common ones. There's probably some secret ones I don't know about. Like a bacon filter or something. Low shelf. High shelf. Low pass. High pass. Band pass. Band. And notch. So now I'm going to show you the back, sack and crack treatment on a guitar. I have some guitar and drums playing together. I'm just going to EQ the guitar and I'll explain what I'm doing as I go along. Yeah, good hair. So first off, I want to cut back the unwanted and unnecessary frequencies. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a high pass. And I'm going to sweep up a little bit. Have a listen to the differences. Disabled, enabled. Now for this part, you actually don't want too much of a difference because basically we're cutting out the frequencies that we otherwise don't really experience in the mix. This guitar is not bass heavy, so it doesn't need these frequencies at the bottom, so we're just cutting away with them. Lower my bandwidth and increase my gain and just sweep around for any resonant peaks, things that sound a bit weird, and then I'll decrease them. So let's have a watch. Let's see what I'm gonna do. And now again I'm going to disable it so I can reset my hearing, because right now I'm adjusted, my brain and my ears have adjusted to this sound, and I'm going to end up convincing myself it's a good idea and it sounds good. So what I want to do is disable it, reset my hearing, get used to this again, and then enable it again, and I can make a decision on whether or not that was a good choice. And I think it was. There's some resonant peaks there that just sound a bit arsey. I'm going to do the same again. Decrease the bandwidth, increase the gain, and sweep around for some ugly frequencies. I reckon there's probably one around 700. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like crap. Let's get rid of that. Disable again. Get used to the sound without this EQ, and then I'm going to apply it again and hopefully confirm it was a good decision. Let's cut that a little bit more. Yep, I like that. Okay, next one. Now I'm going to move on to SAC. I'm going to try and accentuate and embellish all of the best frequencies of this recording. All the bits that make it sound cool, make it larger than life, whatever. Just things that are good. I'm going to try and make them more apparent to the listener. So first, I don't want a high shelf, I want a band. And I'm going to sweep around again. Disable it, get used to this sound, and then re-enable it. Cool. Let's add another band. Then this time I'm going to add a high shelf. It desperately needs a high shelf. So let's start this. Last band, and I think what I'm going to do is add a low shelf, and I'm going to stick it somewhere around just before the high pass. And I'm just going to give a slight boost. Increase the bandwidth a whole bunch. So what that does there is it gives a little bit of a boost just before I'm cutting the frequencies with the high pass. Cool. And now once I think I'm pretty much done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable the entire EQ and let my ears adjust to the sound without any EQ, pop it back on, and we'll see if that works. This is no EQ, and that's with EQ. Yeah, I think that works. That's basically how you do it. Back, sack, crack. So next, I got my better half to record some vocals. I don't know what she's saying, I haven't heard it. I'm gonna listen to it for the first time on video and then you can see me mixing it. So let's get to it. Okay, it's quite a short recording.
I'm leaving you forever. Goodbye. I'm leaving you forever.
Just 2 secs, 2 secs. Babe? Yeah? You've gone? But why? I don't get what. What do you mean I eat too many onions? Too much garlic? You're a vampire? Oh, you are? I don't remember you telling me that. What do you mean I never listen? Hello? Hello? Good onion. So, I got this recording from a podcast I'm going to mix instead. Let's have a listen. So, you married a vampire. Chapter 1. No, you know what? Let's just do some adverts. For the past 25 years, we've been powering your trees. We constantly make innovations. For example, for the past 5 years, we've been able to fly. Bees. Think about us sometimes. I just had no idea. Everything makes so much sense though. Like she could fly, and she was always drinking people. Okay, so here we go. Tip 1. This isn't really a tip, it's more of like an anti-tip. A lot of people seem to give the advice that you should only ever cut frequencies and never boost. And there's not actually any real scientific basis for that. So just cut or boost as much as you feel you need. If it sounds good, then it is good. Tip 2. Use an analysis tool with a spectrum analyzer, like the one I'm using by Melder Production. But also, don't use them too much. Try to trust your ears way more than you trust your eyes. Tip 3. Always second guess yourself. If you think you're adding too much or you're removing too much, then you probably are. So let's say you've added 6 decibels of gain to a frequency band and you're worried it's too much, just run a discount on it and bring it back 50%. You can always come back to it later if your ears are telling you that there's still something wrong with that part of the recording. Tip 4. Always reset your ears after everything you do. Disable the EQ, disable the filter, whatever. Make a small change, turn it off, reset your ears so you get used to how it sounds without it, then click it back on and try to determine whether or not it's good based on the difference you hear in that moment. Never make changes and then tell yourself, yeah, that's good, and then leave it. Always reset your ears, always compare, always A/B, always swap back and forth between what you're doing and what you had before so you can hear those differences. Tip 5. If you had a high pass at about 60 Hz, a steep band around about 5000 Hz, another steep band around 200 Hz, a steep but narrow band also around 5000, a low pass around 12k, kind of narrow steep attenuation around about 1k, and then finally a narrow but sharp boost around 200 Hz, you've got boobs. Tip 6. You're probably going to find that most instruments don't really do much in the low frequency areas, obviously with the exception of bassy instruments and low percussive drums. But for most of them, you do really well to cut at least below 30 Hz. Tip 7. Use your ears while you make frequency changes. Close your eyes, drag the frequencies up and down, drag the gain up and down. You would be surprised with the results you get just listening. Tip 8. If you're looking for a nasty frequency that you can hear but you can't pinpoint, create a huge narrow boost and just sweep around until that nasty frequency fills your ears. That's where you're going to need to cut. So bring it back down to 0 to reset your ears, and then just decrease it until it's not so offensive. Tip 9. You've heard this before, but reset your ears all the time. Listen, don't look. But if you look, don't listen. And if you don't look and don't listen, then you're a winner. Tip 10. If you want to get creative, try and add your own even harmonics. If a boost sounds good around 400 Hz, try adding a little bit at 800 Hz, and then an even little bit at like 1.6k Hz. Tip 11. Never EQ while listening to an instrument in solo. Always listen to the full mix with everything else at the same time. An individual recording might sound amazing in solo, but then when you bring in all of the other tracks, it just falls apart like Kanye's presidential campaign. Tip 12. This is a really good tip for like working out the muscles in your ears, and it will just bend your brain. Try not to listen to the track that you're EQing. So if you're EQing the snare drum, listen to the other tracks around it in the same frequency space. Like maybe listen to the guitar or something. Try to block out the snare drum. Don't listen to it at all. Tip 13. Automate your EQ. Different sections of different songs have different requirements, and a static mix is always a boring mix. Tip 14. Don't let volume trick you. She is a sneaky bitch, and loudness will always sound better. That's just how your ears work. After you've made adjustments, make sure that the overall volume coming out of the EQ is the same as going into the EQ. So when you A and B, or disable and enable your EQ, the volume is the same. Otherwise, whichever one is louder is going to sound better. Tip 15. When you EQ, actually whenever you're mixing, try and do most of it in mono. If you can get something sounding great in mono, it's going to be astounding in stereo. Trust me. Tip 16. Presets are a really handy guide. They're never the end goal, but they are there for a reason. Learn from them until you never need them again, but don't stick your nose up to them just because other people do. Tip 17. Complement tracks. If you need to make a cut in a bass track, to make way for the kick drum, make a smaller cut than you think you need, and then make a small boost in the kick drum at the same frequency. You know, we're trying to make our frequencies play nicely together, and this is how you get your crack. Tip 18 is learn your tools inside out. You want to be able to disassemble and reassemble everything with a blindfold on in 30 seconds. Tip 19 is don't be dazzled by price or a fancy UI. You can achieve all the same things in a fancy expensive EQ as you can in the one that came with your DAW. Honestly, like you can. You don't have to pay anything to get a good mix. You just need to use these. Ears, not hair. Just need to use your hair. Just use your hair. Tip 20. Bass effects and reverb, they need love too. Tip 21. Even samples you buy from the internet need love. Tip 23. Always look both ways before crossing the road, especially after you've had your crack. Okay, I think that's it. I'm tired and bored. Remember, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. To do that, you just stick your hand out towards the monitor, clench your fist, and protrude your thumb at a 90-degree angle to your fingers. Also, like, subscribe and stuff, because we all need to work together to help me feed my ego.